Wow, that was an amazing video. I hadn't actually seen that video before just a second. Great job, team. Welcome, everybody. I hope that you are as excited as I am about CU Denver's 50th anniversary. And welcome, everybody. I'm Chancellor Michelle Marks. I am honored to welcome you to the second annual Future Fest. So welcome, everybody. That video is just a little teeny snapshot of the many incredible ways that CU Denver has risen to meet the moment over the last 5 decades. And today, with this event, we're going to show the world once again how it is your work and your commitment and your vision that drives our future. And I want to acknowledge Regent Norbert Chavez, who's in the front row, who's joining us. He'll be on stage in just a little bit, and so many others here. We have an incredible program lined up for you today of our faculty members and staff and community members. For our 50th anniversary, we are honoring our past as we meet the moment and as we look ahead to our future. And today, you're going to hear some incredibly important stories that recognize and honor our past, and then see how our groundbreaking research and scholarship and researchers are going to innovate into the future. And you're also going to see how we, as a university, distinguish ourselves from traditional institutions. We are thinking differently and we are acting boldly because that's what our students need and that is what our communities need. And this is what our region and our state and our world needs. Throughout our 50 years, CU Denver has always been there to meet the moment. And it's been our faculty and staff and so many of you here today in our community who have supported our students, our beloved students, through every single chapter in our history. And some of you in this room, and you know who you are, have even been here through most of that history, and that is incredible, no matter how the world and no matter how higher education has changed. As we think about how we will continue to be here for our students moving forward, I know that all of you are going to help us do that work and lead the way. Whether our students at CU Denver are first in their family to attend college, whether they're coming back to finish a degree to better themselves and to give their children a better future, whether they are part of the 70% of our students who are working learners and are maybe needing to take classes in the evenings, we have and we always will be right here in the city right now in this moment. And it is that unbridled thinking that is driven by what is possible, not what is impossible, that continues to define our work and our mission. When I think about how much CU Denver has grown in so many ways, I know that we have so many of you to thank for that progress. 10 years ago, if you were standing right here where we're sitting today, you would have seen a lot of empty space. You would have seen parking lots. Some of you who are here. You would have seen some athletic fields. And now I just want you to take a moment to look around you. Even right here where this place has truly been transformed. In 2014, we opened the Student Commons right behind you. It provides state-of-the-art spaces for learning and for student support and services. In 2018, we completed this building behind me, the Lola and Rob Salazar Student Wellness Center, which has become a true social hub, as well as a center for recreation and for student well-being. Right behind you on your way in, I hope you passed the Lynx. It's a larger-than-life Lynx statue, which has become a focal point for our campus, completed in 2021. Also, these incredible towering murals, they were completed just this year in 2022 by a nationally renowned artist, two-time CU Denver alum, whose stage name is Detour, real name Thomas Evans. These murals are one way that we are showing that everyone belongs at CU Denver. But CU Denver's 5 decades of transformation is truly more than just physical. Meeting the moment is about being willing to change and being change makers in the face of formidable challenges. And so what does this mean? This means that we're going to invest in connecting all students, particularly low-income students, to a CU Denver education so they can improve their lives and it will benefit our society moving forward. And this investment has made CU Denver the #1 university for social mobility in the state of Colorado for the 2nd year in a row. And I think that's worth cheering for. Meeting the moment also means building the first-year student residence hall, City Heights, which was built in 2021, which provides affordable housing for our students and creates an integrated housing and academic and extracurricular support, so important for so many of our students to make transition. Meeting the moment means developing the future of engineering, design, and computing right in the intersection of Larimer and Spear Boulevard. And we're going to have shovels in the ground in April 2023 in the building beyond this one with a new engineering and computing building. But innovation also means focusing on what our city and what our state need next. And we are also offering cool, amazing, important degrees. For example, a new one in data science, which is interdisciplinary, and a new Smart Cities certificate. Our scholars are working across disciplines to address the challenges that are truly the grand challenges of our society today. We're tackling things like urban air pollution. We're designing research labs, literally designing and constructing research labs and housing for NOAA scientists who are studying the impacts of climate change in Antarctica, supporting community health, and much more. And I'm so excited to hear today from our CU Denver researchers during today's Links lectures. Meeting the moment also means working together to combat structural and societal inequities. In our 2030 strategic plan for CU Denver, which is called Make Education Work for All, it rewrites the playbook for how higher education can and should work for everybody. And we're making real investments to address historical injustices. 1 year ago, we expanded our Displaced Agrarian Scholarship Program, and now you're going to hear more today about our 9th Street Initiative, which doubles down on our commitment to honor history and culture. Regent Chavez and his panel this afternoon, are going to discuss how this initiative charts a more inclusive, more affirming future for our university and those that we serve in just a few minutes. So for nearly 50 years, CU Denver has continued to rise to meet the moment, and it requires us all to be working together. Really, though, a 50-year-old institution is really only a teenager in university years, which means we are still coming of age. And as our faculty and staff and students and supporters and community members, you continue to lift us higher and allow us to think and dream big, and we, that way, will continue to be the change makers that higher education and the world need for the next 50 years and beyond that. So thank you all, and I am now so honored to introduce our MC, Sarah Bullard, who's CU Denver's Director of Organizational Effectiveness and Engagement. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Lynx. Can I get a go Lynx? That's not bad considering we don't have any sports teams, so job well done. Okay. Thank you, Chancellor Marks, and good afternoon, everyone. As Chancellor Marks said, I am Sarah Buller. I will be your MC for this afternoon. We have a very jam-packed afternoon today. We will be celebrating our Links lecturers, and we will be spending this time looking at our yearly strategic update and showcase of knowledge, research, and discovery. So as part of my duties as your MC, I will be introducing many of these dynamic speakers to talk about our campus's future and their innovative work impacting our future. But before we look ahead into our future, it's important for us to acknowledge our past. The land we are standing on is the land, I wanted to say and sitting because many of you are actually sitting. So the land we are standing and sitting on is located on the traditional territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute nations. This area was also the site of trade, hunting, gathering, and healing for many indigenous people, including the Lakota, Kiowa, Comanche, Apache, Shoshone, and 45 other indigenous nations. Let us acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this territory and pay our respect to the diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land. More recently, we acknowledged the displacement of the former residents of Auraria, Denver's oldest neighborhood, before the Auraria Higher Education Campus was built, when it was distinctly Hispanic. We remember the community whose neighborhood was uprooted in the name of urban renewal when the campus opened in 1974. As an emerging Hispanic serving institution, our history will inform our efforts to equitably serve our campus and our surrounding community. While our heritage is important year-round, I want to take time to acknowledge that we continue to mark Hispanic Heritage Month through this week, and we are approaching National Native American Heritage Month next month. Our heritage also plays a key role in today's event as we look back at our 50-year history, reflect on how it has shaped us and informed our perspective as we look forward to where we are going as an institution. So today I would like to give you a quick preview of today's event lineup, and boy, is it a lineup. So in a moment, you will be hearing from CU Regent, CU leader, and alumnus, Nolbert Chavez, who will lead a panel discussion on the important work he is doing shepherding to revitalize our historic 9th Street Park. Then we'll transition to our Link lecturers and hear from a roster of amazing researchers who will each provide 3-minute presentations on their research and experiences at CU Denver, several of whom are the inaugural Research Grand Challenge winners. After that, see, it keeps going. You thought I was done, but it keeps going. After that, you'll hear from Dr. Monique Snowden, Senior Vice Chancellor for Strategic Enrollment and Student Success, who will discuss our growth potential as Colorado's only public urban research university. And finally, we will celebrate our work as a university and community together, and that's when you get to eat, party, dance, win prizes, and have a great time. So with that, I would like to introduce, Nolbert Chavez to the stage.
And so it's important to us that we find a way to really engage with folks and find out what they'd like to see in this space before we come up with a plan that is done to their space instead of with them. So I see my role as being a guardian of the homes that we occupy here on 9th Street. And it's an idea that is born out of the military. Back in 1965, a senior officer began escorting fallen soldiers to their final resting place. And that's how I see my role here. These homes have been largely ignored, neglected in some cases over the last 50 years, and are on a path to their final destination. Good afternoon. My name is Nolbert Chavez, and I'm so proud to be here, and I'm so proud of the panel that we have here to talk to us about how we got to this place. And we heard a little bit in the land acknowledgement that there was displacement that took place in order for our campus to be built. And you may wonder, how is that possible? right? I mean, it doesn't seem possible today that something like that would happen. But it all started with a flood in 1965. And that flood affected this neighborhood. And this neighborhood was called Auraria, and it was a working class neighborhood, immigrant neighborhood. And just about a block from here, you can't see it because the building's in the way, but that was the very first bridge, Larimer Street Bridge, that crossed from the town of Auraria into the town of Denver, city of Denver. And that flood gave city leaders and planners the idea that, hey, maybe we could use that land for something better, different. And they came up with a plan unbeknownst to the neighborhood, what they were planning, until it was almost too late. They let the community know that they were going to be displaced, and they put a ballot issue in 1969 on the ballot, a bond issue that, if approved, would pay for that displacement and the building of the campus. And at the time, and some of our panelists can probably shed light on this, at the time they thought they had enough votes to kill that, until Archbishop Casey, the Catholic bishop at the time, asked for a letter to be read from the pulpit of every Catholic church in town, encouraging people to vote for that measure. And people believe that that was what put it over the top and the reason that it passed. And it took several years for that process to play out, but one bright spot occurred, and that was that Historic Denver, which was a very new organization, they were organized in order to save the Molly Brown House. They approached the city and said, hey, before you tear out the whole thing, give us the opportunity to save a portion, just a portion of the neighborhood. And the city said, sure, as long as you raise all the money and do all the work, you can do that. And they agreed on one block, 9th Street, as the block that they would save. And so they used they did a demonstration project, 1015 9th Street, where my uncle used to live in 1948. And they restored that house and invited the community to come in, and others and funders, and people were excited, and they raised $1 million. And in today's terms, that would be $6 million they had to do in 1 year. But they did it, and they saved that block. And it was turned over in 1976 to Auraria, and it's been on the campus ever since. Part of what we want to do is to invest in those homes and respect the sacrifice that was made by those families to make room for this campus. And so Chancellor Marks talked a little bit about the scholarship, and I couldn't be more proud of that effort because we extended that scholarship in perpetuity. So it will not end with the children and grandchildren being able to go to school. It'll continue on. And so thinking about how we honor the past, that was a big part of it. And thinking about the present in terms of how we treat and utilize those homes is the second piece. And then the third piece, as we look to the future, is how that sacred space, and in my opinion, 9th Street is that sacred space, how we invite the community back to celebrate that in a meaningful way. It's not enough to have a park and to set it aside and then say it's $7.50 to park to come and visit it. It's not enough. And so we need to think creatively and respectfully of how we engage folks to come back and use that park. And so part of our panel today is a mix of folks who've been involved for a short time and some for a long time. in this process. And so I would invite them all to come up and have a seat, and I'll ask you some questions, and you can share your experience with all of us here. Looks a little crowded up there, so I'll stand over here. I'm going to start with Frances Torres. Frances is a Auraria Historical Advocacy Council member and a displaced Aurarian herself. And her and her family obviously grew up here, but they've been so active over so many decades and is such a role model to me and so many others. I'm so happy that she's here. And I would love for you to just share a few stories of what it was like to grow up on 9th Street and in the Auraria neighborhood as a whole, and what that sense of community was like back then.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. As Norbert said, my name is Frances Torres. I'm a displaced Aurarian. I'm a 9th Streeter, and I'm a West Sider. I'd like to share a memory that happened in the mid-1960s that is an example of an Auraria-wide community Catholic practice. This practice celebrated our Mexican, American, and New Mexican heritage from the Catholic perspective. I was raised at St. Cajetan's Elementary, but it also reflects the deep faith that a lot of women had in this neighborhood, and my mother was one of them. So because my mom cranked up the radio in our house at 5 o'clock daily to pray the rosary with Paco Sanchez, who had a Spanish language station, KFSC, we knew that this was a good time to climb our roof at 1033 9th Street. I never got caught climbing the roof at 1033 9th Street, but I did get caught one day at a neighbor's house when I convinced one of my friends 2 houses down to climb the roof because her elderly grandma was praying the rosary with my mom, like one of the women that did, and she wouldn't hear our footsteps on the roof. Well, what happened is we climbed up the roof. When we got up the roof, her grandma ran out of the house yelling in Spanish, telling us we needed to get down, and I wouldn't get down. She just brought so much attention to the whole scene that I just wanted to hide. But then when she said, "Tu papa," I knew I had to get down. And the whole point is that, I knew that my father whose side my father would take, because they were a family since the early 1950s that we knew, that knew my cousins, that knew my aunts, that grew up in this neighborhood. So that's the kind of community we were. So, and there's more stories with a lot more information that you might be able to access through different oral histories that I hope you do. But as a displaced Aurarian, I represent not just the people on 9th Street, but the people in this community, many of them renters, many of them who moved back and forth from this side of Colfax to the south side of Colfax because we had family and friends that lived there. And a lot of those people, as far as the scholarship goes, and I'm so grateful to this campus for honoring their commitment to the scholarship, but some of those people have not even heard about the scholarship, or they have no paper trail. So I'd like to remind you that I represent those people as well, and I represent some of our neighbors who were not Catholic. There were other religions in this neighborhood that also served the Mexican American and New Mexican population. So for that, I'm glad for the scholarship and also for the commitment to a welcome center that the organization I belong to is committed. We're committed to creating a welcome center, a museum of memories type on this campus to help students access the scholarship that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis.
Okay.
And speaking of memories, Marisa Volpe is the Chief of Equity and Engagement at History Colorado, and she's been a part of a Museum of Memories effort that History Colorado has done throughout the state, but specifically here on the Auraria campus and for the families that were displaced. And the first event that we had in the spring in March, I got lots of phone calls from some of the families, and they called it the reunion, which was great. I loved that because everybody was excited to come together and see each other. And so, Marisa, if you would tell us a little bit about the Museum of Memories event and what your efforts are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm Marisa. I work with History Colorado. We're a 144-year-old institution, the State Historical Society. Sometimes we're referred to as the state's memory, a collecting institution. And my role there is to ensure that we are preserving, stewarding, caring for a wide range of community stories, especially those that have not been included in the state's record. And so this has been a powerful way to connect with the displaced Aurarian community, to really bring together community members for them to tell, to share, and preserve their stories. The magic of Museum of Memory is that it's really decentering institutional approaches to collecting, which have absolutely preferenced privileged populations. The ways in which we have collected have focused on individual stories. This method says all of us live in the context of one another in community. And so we need ways to preserve that get at that community-based story. And so what we do is we connect with folks. They come together to share, to tell, draw maps of beloved community places, pickle shops, for instance, or the sound of church bells, or what the smells were, to really come together and think collectively how we want to tell this story as a community. Those oral histories are preserved in the state's record and will be available for decades and decades to come. We also companion that with photography collecting and have brought in hundreds of photos of families and their celebrations right here in Auraria. And so this will all be made public, be shared back and accessible in a way that all generations should be able to access this. So that's our Museum of Memory, and we've been in partnership in dialogue with Francis and Norbert doing this great work, and the response has been tremendous. As Norbert said, the first Museum of Memory brought together hundreds of folks. We had a big birthday celebration cake. It really was this need to come together and tell our stories in the context of one another. And so we really want to keep that spirit alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to hear from Nita Gonzalez. Nita is a community activist for the Chicano, Mexicano, and indigenous people. Her family has incredibly strong roots in our city, and her dad, Corky Gonzalez, really has had an impact over the entire Southwest of the United States. And we got to travel together, Nita, myself, and Chancellor Marks, to Chicano Park in San Diego. And if you've never been to Chicano Park, it's a space that went through a very similar history, and around the same time, frankly, in the late 60s and early 70s. And that Latino community occupied that space. They took over that space and really have never left. And I asked Nita to come to share a little bit about her family's connection to Chicano Park and how we want to take lessons from Chicano Park and incorporate them into what we plan for 9th Street and for the campus as a whole, which at the root of it is art. Nita.
Thank you. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos. Qué bueno que nosotros estamos aquí. And I'd like to start with honoring those that lived in this place, on this land. Not only our indigenous ancestors, because they are our ancestors, but also our families that made Auraria the city that it was before the campus took over, and they were displaced. But that's not history of just one neighborhood. It is history of many neighborhoods and communities across this country. And what I want to applaud is everyone coming together and recognizing that and trying to rectify that. So I speak today because there were those ancestors, our aunts, our uncles, our parents, our grandparents, that stood up so that we could be talking here today. I thank them for that. I'm grateful for them and for our relatives. And so with that, the beauty about Chicano Park, first of all, it was born out of the Chicano movement. I don't use Hispanic, I am not Hispana, I am not Latina, I am Chicana, a brown woman that was raised in East Denver, but with relatives in West Denver. We stretched across about 3 or 4 barrios in this city. And out of the Chicano movement came that spirit of reclaiming who we were as a people, but our place in this geography, a place that often was denied us, as was denied the Aurarians here and our people. And in that worked through the movement, the likes of Chunky, Ramon Sanchez, and the Chicano Steering Committee group came together and decided, this is our land, and we're not going to give it up to a police substation, which is what they wanted to build there. Similar to they would displace people from around that park. And as Norbert said, took it over. But the beauty about Chicano Park is it resonated with many of us in the movement across the Southwest, that a community could do this, could take over a piece of land and make it theirs. Well, they reminded me, it was ours. We just took it back. And they did it with an incredible commitment to spirit and artistic influence. Every pillar underneath that highway, it has artwork and tells the history of the people of that community. And they've been able to fight off the attempts to take down those murals. And I want to take this one piece. Murals were born out of the Chicano movement in this city. They weren't born out of white privilege who felt they wanted to put stuff on a building. It came out of Emmanuel Martinez. It came out of Carlota Espinosa, a West Sider. These are the people that were the fathers and mothers of muralism in the city and county of Denver. Now it's a great, cool thing to do, right? An artistic thing to do. We were in jail because we did it, but we got arrested because we did it. And I just want to say that when we took the trip, I think Michelle and Norbert, I hope you agree, just revisiting the incredible self-determination that the people of Chicano Park demonstrated by taking over that piece and growing it and keeping it. And Chicano Park Day is held every day. And I can't see why we are not at 9th Street Park every year also honoring our ancestors and relatives and coming together. And not because, you know, we could take over a parking lot, I guess, and just say we're not going to pay, but who knows. But the beauty is having our own relatives. Norbert Chavez is our relative, our familia, as regent with this dream of reclaiming 9th Street for our community. And so I thank him for that. And what I want to say about Chicano Park that's celebrated annually, they take not one dime of corporate dollar. Not one dime of corporate dollar. It is all community ran and community led. And in that spirit, I believe we can revitalize and regain and recapture 9th Street Park for our community here in Denver. Gracias.
Thank you, Nita. I want to introduce Milo Marquez, who's the director of the Latino Action Council. And you travel throughout the whole state and organize Latino organizations throughout Colorado. And I just want to ask, what do you hear from them about the importance of honoring our history and as a way of looking to the future?
I want to thank everyone for coming out and hearing us. My name is Milo Marquez, no relation to Milo the Lynx. Although I keep getting confused when they're on the microphone saying Milo, I keep turning my head. I'm a fifth-generation Denverite. I grew up in East Denver. My grandmother was a West Sider. But to answer the question, what am I hearing from communities across the state? I want to thank CU Denver for not having the fear to start talking about this issue. We've waited 50 years for someone to have the courage to come out and start talking about the displacement of our area people. We have 3 institutions that occupy this land. What we want is for these 3 institutions to begin working together to tell the real story of the displaced and dispersed people from this campus. I talk to students on this campus all the time, and I ask them, do you know what this neighborhood was? They have no idea. What I'm hoping to see is that these 3 institutions begin having classes, begin having ceremonies like this to educate these students so that way they understand the history of gentrification and displacement. We see the displacement that occurred here 50 years ago, but we can't forget that every time we turn a corner, we go into the north side, which they now call the Highlands, or we go into the east side, which they now call the Rhino. We've got to teach the history of the people that are being displaced. It's critical. We have so much history that's being forgotten. Displacement is not just people being moved out, but we're losing our culture, our language, our history, our heritage. So what am I hearing from the community is that they don't know. How do we teach our children the right history? And I think we can do that by starting at a young age, teaching the history of displacement and going and making sure that our students have a seat in their classroom and their history is actually being taught. Not the history that is currently being shown to them, but their history and those people that have contributed to the fabric of this city and this state and this country is being taught to them, so that way they can feel included and they can graduate high school and attend college.
Thank you, Milo. And speaking of ceremonies, I want to invite all of you to a special blessing, a community blessing that we're having on October 27th at 3 o'clock. It is a ceremony that our next panelist is going to be a part of. It's a special blessing for the first house, our demonstration project that we're starting with 1059th Street, and we're going to be renovating and restoring that home as the first in that set of homes. And so I would love for all of you to come. But before we did that, we had a private blessing for Rita Gomez and her family. She was the person who was displaced from that home. And Christina Segala is a curandera, and she's also a CU Denver doctoral student in the Leadership and Educational Equity program. And she is, I just learned, receiving her scholarship as well, her Displaced Agrarian Scholarship as well. So if you don't mind sharing with us how you became a healer, a curandera, and what that means to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me? Good job. Closer. Okay. I want to thank my ancestors who've gone before me and our beloved elders that are here today who have allowed me to speak to you today. Mitako e oase. That's a Lakota philosophy, and it means we are all related. And I'm so blessed to be here. I was baptized at St. Cajetan's, the Segalas. We were there. We are now here on this beloved campus. Cura, C-U-R-A, means heal in Spanish. A curandera is a woman healer. I am a medicine woman. My beloved mom, Teresa Segala, and my grandma, Sofia Vasquez, and our neighbor, San Juana, would always be in the kitchen helping people with remedios, prayers, holy water, candles, rosaries, and asking the people, how are you going to fix your problem? They were curanderas. I observed and was constantly reminded by my grandma Sofia that I was born with a don, a light, which she said would help. Which she said I would help people all my life, to which I responded as a young girl, I don't want to help people, Grandma. Now I am strong Lifeways woman who is very grateful to be a doctoral candidate here at my beloved CU Denver with strong prayers of hope to graduate in 2023. Spring. This doctoral path is long and a hard journey that began at my beloved Sundance at Wombly, South Dakota, near Pine Ridge, our sacred reservation. I had a vision at that Sundance on the third day, third round, while holding my sacred chanupa, which was given to me by my friend Dorothy Brave Eagle after I completed a vision quest for her. My relative, Dorothy, in the Black Hills of South Dakota at her family's Sundance grounds. Hamblechiapi, which is a vision quest, literally means crying for a vision, is one of the 7 sacred rites of our Lakota relatives. At our beloved Sundance at Wombly on the third day, third round, which was dedicated as a healing day for our community, holding so tight my chanupa, I fell to the ground as the beautiful dust of the dirt sprinkled over me. I saw the vision of white buffalo calf woman and Tonat Scene, who both told me I must go back to the university and obtain my doctoral degree. I said, no, I don't want to. And then in the light of El Sol, the sun, they went up to Star Nation, which is where we go when we leave this earth. I am a high school push-out from North High School 1971 and completed a bachelor's in human services at MSU, 2 master's degree, one from Iliff School of Theology in Justice and Peace and Civil Rights work, and one from social work from DU, and now my beloved doctorate at my beloved CU Denver. Wopila Washte, Pila Maea.
I can't think of a better way to end this, except to say, please help me welcome our guests. And lastly, if Christina, if you look to your right in front of the Tivoli, next May, Michelle and I are going to be on stage to give you your degree. Let's make a date of it. How about it? Thank you so much. Thank you.
I say on the behalf of the crowd here, thank you for that grounding and powerful discussion. Can we please give them another round of applause? And now it's Link's lecture time. The first 5 speakers are all grant recipients of our first round of research grand challenges, which are integral to our Goal 3 as aspiration to become internationally known for research and creative works. And now something to tingle your visuals.
In Goal 3 of our 2030 strategic plan, we aspire to be internationally known for our research and creative works. That is a big undertaking, but one that I know our talented faculty can help us achieve with the right vision and direction. Last year, to get us there, CU Denver embarked on a months-long, rigorous process to help build a vibrant research culture and invite faculty and staff from across campus to bring their best ideas and pitches forward, to collaborate across schools, colleges, and departments, and to land on research topics that could potentially serve as the basis for our grand challenges. Last October, we hosted our first symposium and dozens of teams presented. As we went further in the process, we ultimately narrowed the field and arrived at 7 teams. To help inform our process, we engaged with third parties, including Hanover Research and Lewis Burke Associates, and we consulted with Anschutz, Boulder, Colorado Springs, and even CSU. In a moment, you will hear from our researchers who are receiving the first grants that will serve as initial investments in our Grand Challenges journey. I am so proud of them and everyone who is engaged in research and creativity at CU Denver. Congratulations.
And now, let's please welcome our first team who will address climate change and community health.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Future Fest. Around the globe, we're facing an onslaught of threats to the health and well-being of our communities, many of which stem from long-standing challenges related to poverty, inequality, institutional racism, and rampant urbanization. And all of these challenges have been exacerbated by the devastating impacts of human-induced climate change. But these threats are not only being felt in the developing world, they're increasingly visible right here in Colorado. Unfortunately, but unsurprisingly, those bearing the brunt of these impacts are our most vulnerable neighbors, including children and youth, people of color, folks with disabilities, and older adults. What's clear from decades of research is that place matters. And when it comes to predicting lifetime earnings, social mobility, physical, mental health, and even life expectancy, your zip code is a more powerful predictor than your genetic code. In fact, the average resident of the 80216 zip code, just a half mile in that direction, dies 15 years earlier than the average resident of the 80209 zip code, which sits just 2 miles in that direction. But the bad news doesn't end there. As climate change accelerates, study after study shows that environmental injustices like these are harming our most vulnerable residents at unprecedented rates. All while people of means continue to avoid these negative externalities altogether. This is because climate change is what we as urban planners, engineers, anthropologists, biologists call a wicked problem, where the scale of the challenge exceeds our ability to solve it with the methods we currently have on hand.
But let's be clear, researchers have tried to address these challenges, but too often they fail to make a meaningful impact. There are 3 main reasons for this. First, academic research is too siloed. And WICIT problems require interdisciplinary approaches that draw on the expertise of allied fields and professions. Second, even the best researchers can fail to understand the real issues facing marginalized communities. Too often, they lack any meaningful connection to the people who are most affected by these global shifts. And third, researchers also lack the resources and know-how for sustaining long-term collaboration with communities. As a result, they do not fully communicate the findings beyond scholarly journals, push for policy change, help to implement solutions, or conduct follow-up studies. We are here to tell you that it doesn't have to be this way. Our grand challenge is to determine how we might work together, both across the university and with communities, to reduce and ultimately prevent place-based health inequities related to climate change. We must find ways to address complex problems like climate migration, labor exploitation, and extreme weather events that impact housing markets, damage local infrastructure, and constrain household and government resources, among so many other things. With our initial community partners, our interdisciplinary team of 20 faculty members from 10 different departments at CU Denver have begun to develop a new model. It is a visionary approach to research and scholarship that helps us to accomplish our mission as a public urban research university that truly serves our communities. Our vision, the CU Denver Community Collaboration and Research Center, or CCRC, will focus on achieving climate justice for our most marginalized neighbors. We will use a community-led approach that fundamentally challenges traditional models of university research. We will pair community councils with teams of faculty and students, and these teams will form long-term local engagements that go beyond merely identifying problems to actually developing, testing, and evaluating solutions.
With strong leadership from local communities and the establishment of storefront research centers like this one in Chicago, the CCRC will embed our team and our university in communities in profound and previously unrealized ways. Our vision of engagement stems from a simple yet powerful premise. We cannot truly understand or fix our greatest challenges from behind a desk.
We are excited to invite all of you, students, faculty, and community members, to engage with the CCRC in the coming months, because one thing is for sure, there is no time to waste.
Thank you. And with that, I would like us as a Lynx community to say, we support you. We support you. And with that, I would like to welcome our second team who will present on genetics.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Future Fest. I'm so excited. Yeah, my name is Xiaojun Ren from Chemistry Department. So as you know, human cycle is impacted by three major factors and process. The first one is life experience, such as education, we just talked about, physical activity, abuse, and stress. The second one is social economics, such as poverty, living conditions, nutrients, and hunger. The third one is environmental exposure, such as extreme weather and air quality. All these factors impact genetic activities. Genetic activities determine health outcomes, such as happy life and better health, or unhealthy outcomes, such as cancer, mental disorders, and developmental disorders. Epigenetics determine genetic activities. This determination is through writing and reading chemical modifications. Genetic DNA is a polymer, yeah, just like this. It's a big polymer. Like a rope. The rope can be folded into different structures. Different structures have different material properties. The material properties determine genetic activities. Basically, the epigenetic determine the genetic DNA through chemical modifications. Dysregulation of epigenetic modifications leads to many diseases, such as cancer, mental disorder, development disorders. We propose a center of excellence for epigenetics to tackle most complex epigenetic problems, which cannot be solved by one discipline or one lab. The center will fuse multidiscipline of biology, chemistry, physics, math, and computation. Specifically, will develop disruptive single molecule technologies to solve problems that cannot be solved by using traditional ways. We will use stem cells, animal models, and data science to understand the brain tumor, mental disorders, and developmental disorders. Our center member actually is national and international recognized. Our discoveries have been selected as one of the most significant publications over 1 century. We help identify the most promising scientists or investigators of our nation and our next generation of scientists, physician scientists. We publish papers in the most prestigious journals, such as Nature and Cell Family Journals and PNAS. We successfully obtained the most competitive federal grants, such as NIH R1, NIH R35, and the NSF Queer Awards. We will establish an innovative and creative research and education hub at the university. This aligns with the university's strategic plan 3, becoming international norm for our research and creative activities. We'll focus on obtaining the most prestigious federal grants and publish papers in the most influential journals. The center will also become an interdisciplinary education center. The center will train our next generation of biomedical innovators and creators. We will seek for institution training grants for undergraduate and graduate students once we reach a certain momentum. We will establish the first epigenetic center in Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a Lynx community, we say, we support you. And now we welcome our next team who will discuss urban infrastructure informatics.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Farnoosh Banarika-Ajani. I'm an associate professor of computer science and engineering. And my colleague?
Hi, I'm Serena. I am a senior instructor at the School of Public Affairs.
Great. Thank you. And we are going to talk to you about infrastructure informatics today. I don't see my slides. Yeah, maybe I can look this way. Okay. All right. According to American Society of Civil Engineers, America's infrastructure has got a grade C-. It's a failing grade. And this is double. And this is not only in the US, this is across the world that's happening to us. And climate change is not helping us either, unfortunately. These are all well documented in the infrastructure bill, which was recently passed and funded by the US Congress. So as a group of 24 faculty and researchers coming from 5 different schools and colleges, we got together and posed the big question here. How can we leverage the power of AI and data science to help solve this problem? And the answer we came up with is infrastructure informatics, which is inspired by bioinformatics and precision medicine, where they use informatics to come up with ways to personalize diagnostic as well as preventive medicine for individuals. We think of infrastructures and their component as particular individuals that you are trying to heal. And we are trying to use AI to come up with ways to introduce models and methods to manage and maintain these individuals. But what does this really mean? Let me give you an example. Bridges. Bridges are the glue for our surface transportation network. over the last 3 decades, all of our transportation agencies across the nation have been mandated to collect highly detailed data. It's called bridge health data. And that data is a gold mine for AI and data-driven solutions that could help us manage, maintain, and monitor these bridges. In particular, what if we could come up with a model who could predict deterioration of a particular bridge and its components for the next 20 years as accurately as possible, like a fortune teller? And then, what if we could use those predictions to come up with, identify basically families of bridges that perform very differently, and then look into the features of each of these families to see why they perform the way they perform. Such a study will give us opportunities like designing new bridges, but even more importantly, predicting and preventing bridge failures, just to mention a couple. All of the scenarios I mentioned sound like hypothetical scenarios, but we have actually developed these solutions. And these are deployed in multiple transportation agencies across Colorado. But we're not going to stop there. We just started. We're going to leverage AI in the context of this project to make our cities gigantic photovoltaic arrays while preventing and protecting them from heat island effect. We're going to use AI to optimize commute patterns in our societies and cities, and also to optimize our paratransit services. We're going to look into interactions between our environment and the infrastructures, and then we're going to protect our infrastructures from cyber attacks. We believe AI can help us solve these problems and many other problems to make our power grids, water and wastewater systems, communication systems, transportation systems, and many other infrastructures more efficient, reliable, sustainable, and durable. We believe there are big problems with our infrastructures, and we have big dreams to come up with solutions to address these problems. Now, with this overview, I hand it off to my colleague to talk about a specific project we are looking at.
Due to the increasing natural disasters and the aging electrical grid system, the frequency of power outages has almost tripled in the last decade. Electrical vehicles can help mitigate the impact of power outages. With the vehicle-to-grid, or V2G, technology which allows EV batteries to give electricity back to the grid, EVs can power buildings when needed. V2G also provides economic and environmental values. EV batteries can store excess energy from solar and wind, and the energy can be used at time of peak demand while reducing carbon emissions. But there are many unanswered questions. How V2G users should be compensated, how well the vehicles and the grid system will communicate, and what are the legal and regulatory framework should look like, and what are the equity impact of vehicle-to-grid. Our team tackles these questions with a convergent framework that combines the field and survey experiments, energy simulations, and network modeling and institutional analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you, and as a Lynx community, we say... Thank you, and I'd like to welcome to the stage our next team who will be tackling democracy.
Welcome to Future Fest. My name is Chris Weibel. I'm a professor at the School of Public Affairs, and we love it.
Hi,
And also-
everybody. I'm sorry. I'm Sasha
ahead.
Brieger-Bush from Political Science.
Yeah. And I help lead and direct the Building Democratic Communities Initiative, which is part of the Grand Challenges. So we have to go back 1 year. Last year, we were given this call. We were given this call to do a grand challenge, which in the video said it, but I'm going to say it again, that it was supposed to be something bold, something interdisciplinary, something transformative, something that would give even more gravity to this campus. And so we thought, how are we going to do this? How do we build something so big and so great? And we really have to start with the people here. Start with the faculty, start with the professors, the instructors, and so forth. But that it's also a challenge because there's an old, probably overused kind of saying about professors, and they're kind of like herding cats. And we're kind of stubborn. We don't like to do things that we don't want to do. So how can we mobilize them? And we did. We got over 40 of them into this topic of building democratic communities. I've also been on multiple, multi-million-dollar grant projects and so forth involving 5 or 6 different disciplines. We got 14 different disciplines and academic units here, all on this one topic. But you know what? This is just not a network. It is a network, but it's more than that. It's actually turned into a community. Sasha and I were just colleagues last year, and now we're friends. Not only that, one of these people called me midway through this process and said, hey, engage in this Building Democratic Communities group. It was the first time on this campus that I felt at home. Now think about that sense of belonging. This campus has amazing goals. I don't know if we can achieve any of them without our people who work here or students feeling like they belong in this campus. That's what this can provide. Now that aside, because we have some serious things to talk about, and one involves basically building democratic communities. And I'm not going to get too much into the status of our democracy right now. If you want to learn about it, just Google, look at your news, go to social media, and you'll find various words associated with basically the word democracy. You'll find words like in peril, in decline, under threat, needs to be saved. You'll see words of I'm fearful for its future. This is a serious situation. Don't blink. Things are changing, and we need to act on this. And we believe that this university can have a role in those solutions. And that's basically the foundation for this Building Democratic Communities group. And you might say, what are we going to be doing? We are going to be working with all these faculty to help push various initiatives on this campus. One will involve democracy and related to climate change. It'll involve democracy related to policing, democracy related to disasters and resilience, related to disinformation and misinformation in our society, related to policing and education and more. How are we going to do this? Using a lot of traditional techniques that we've used in academia and more. We are doing research, publications, grant writing. We are going to be working with our communities. And even more important than that, we see one of our biggest communities is this campus right here, the students. And we're working on transforming the educational experience of every single student on this campus to somehow incorporate aspects of building democratic communities.
Thank you, Chris. That's really well said, and I'll keep my comments relatively short. Democracies require really strong leaders, and I want to take a moment here to acknowledge the work that Chris did on this project. He took the lead on, thank you so much for joining me and acknowledging Chris. He is patient, diplomatic, engaged, and he elevates all of the people around him instead of himself. And we are stubborn and fiercely independent as professors, and it was like herding cats, and he did such amazing work. I also wanted to say that for my entire professional life, I've been studying politics and economics for more than 20 years. And I look back and I feel that I've been quietly panicking on the inside about issues related to democracy, about inequality, about injustice, about unfreedom, not only on campus, but in Colorado, in the nation, around the world. And I can't describe the feeling of relief that I felt in joining this group and understanding that I wasn't alone with my concerns, that there were brilliant and wonderful people, just so many of them, 40 of them, doing so many amazing things around issues of democracy. This group is forging partnerships with organizations locally, nationally, and globally. We are applying and winning grants. We are working with students on research and teaching, and we are writing up a storm. And we really want to thank the Chancellor and her team for joining our democratic community and for their incredible support for our efforts. So thank you very much.
Thank you as a Links community. And now I would like to welcome up our next team who is focused on creating a new Imaginator Academy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a dream. Own your power. Think different. Black Lives Matter. Love wins. Si se puede. Yes, we can. These are stories of courageous imagination. These are the stories we tell of self-determination and freedom. These are stories that transform the very mental models we all use as we make value in our lives and consider what's possible in our worlds. In today's world, Americans are going to spend more of their waking life at work than any other place. But we are not just workers. We are fully formed human beings having the experience of work. And we don't leave who we are behind when we come to the office or we log on to the network. We bring culture with us. We are experiencing culture shocks and shifts now, the Great Resignation, lives accelerated by technology, declining mental health and well-being, and increasing climate, economic, and social crisis. To meet the challenges ahead, successful companies and organizations must learn how to align culture change with innovation.
We're in an ever-changing world, and it's changing quickly. Either companies and industries evolve or they don't, and when they don't, they aren't here anymore. And I can give you a list of many companies. Or I can talk about the others that are starting up through lived experiences like Arlen Hamilton and Backstage Capital. Our own CU Denver alumni, Danielle Schutz, who started her company and is now a tech startup rising up here in Denver from mentorship and leadership, is also now investing and giving to funds and equity here in the BIPOC region of Denver.
Now, the purpose of inclusion is to unlock the latent capacity of all employees. Our research establishes that organizations that embody inclusion attain greater innovation, productivity, and profitability. Our Imaginator Academy is making the business case for embracing the talents and contributions of America's diverse workforce.
So why aren't we enacting these good ideas? It's not necessarily because they're bad. It's because we don't have the cultural capacity in our organizations, whether that's a university or a corporation, to move them forward. And that means we have to change our culture. It means we have to stop treating workers like they're interchangeable cogs, but instead see them in unique ways, the unique contributions they can make, like the multicolored glass that's brought together to make beautiful kaleidoscopes. We need to lift up unique intersections of identities in our workforce, and that's a big shift for our companies to make. But there is good news. To help companies find that rhythm for inclusive excellence and growth, we have gone through some of the noise. We've puzzled together some of the interdisciplinary research of what works, and we're creating what we call the Denver algorithm, a research-based, iteratively developed tool to bring up the cultural readiness of the companies in any sector that might want to use it.
Stories are the only thing that changes the world. But in today's world, it's a fact that it is data that makes those stories often believable and investable for some. So from across many disciplines, as Kate said, we have harnessed what works. We have helped to future-proof talent development with a radical focus on 3 areas that drive everything: creativity, belonging, and collaboration. And in the spring of 23, we will use this data framework to guide creativity and science residencies in some of Colorado's biggest and best-known companies, with one singular goal: for Denver to become the base camp for all things future of work. But more importantly, the vision of future work that we have is not one that exists today. It's a future of work that works for all. So we invite you to join us in helping make Denver a home for courageous imagination, and get your cameras ready. There's a QR code at the end of the video if you would like to participate in our study of courageous imagination.
And as a Lynx community, we support you. Let's give it another round of applause for our fantastic Lynx lecturers. It is clear that round one yielded some fantastic and important projects. And now we're ready for round two, for the Research Grand Challenges. The first symposium will take place on October 28th, and the second symposium on November 18th. I don't know about you, but I'm excited to see what comes out of round two. And now we're going to switch gears a little bit. Switching gears and turning it over to another member of our faculty and research community, Dr. Jamie Hodgkins. Dr. Hodgkins is an associate professor in the Department of Anthropology, and she will discuss her, might I say, impeccable, amazing, incredible discovery that spans time and geography. Dr. Hodgkins.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. I'll stand over here. Oh. Okay. Oh, there we go. 10,000 years ago, a mother clutched her growing belly. The pregnancy had become difficult. Something was wrong. And the mother's stress was the baby's stress too. And the baby was due to be born within a few weeks. The mother rested by a river in what is now the Ligurian region of northwestern Italy, as her community gathered seeds and nuts, butchered mountain goats for meals and clothing, decorated that clothing with shell beads and pendants, some that had been passed down for generations. Time went by, and the woman gave birth to a baby girl. The girl was welcomed into the group with open arms, but soon it was clear that something was wrong. And within less than 2 months, the infant was gone. Oh, yes, sorry. Go back one. Yeah. The infant's family carried her body up to a cave just upriver, or just upslope from the river. It's a beautiful cave that ascended to a high point in the middle. And they placed her tiny body in a pit wrapped in her baby carrier that was decorated with over 60 pierced shell beads and pendants. And with her beads and pendants, she was removed from the life of the living and encapsulated in time. This is a heartbreaking story that my team uncovered between 2017 and 2018. It is the story of the earliest genetically identified female infant burial in Europe, and it is a discovery that we made using meticulous scientific methods. Some of the methods we use include using 3D total stations to map not only the location of the cave, but all the artifacts that come out of the cave. We couple this with photogrammetry, in which we take multiple photographs to capture the excavation as it happens. And together, we can create a digital twin in which we preserve the spatial relationships of the excavation throughout. Archaeology is a destructive science, and you can't put things back once they're out. So the digital twin helps us keep those relationships intact. Sometimes the digital twin also allows us to do things like remove the sediment from artifacts even before we've removed them, so we can truly understand what it is that we're looking at. Here you can see a string of beads wrapped around the baby's humerus. We also used virtual histology, where we can look at the health and development of the infant. So here you see in the green line, that's the neonatal line. It's a traumatic event that halts the development of all of us when we're born. So that line is the moment of birth for the infant of Arma Verana. But we can also see 2 other periods in which development was halted due to some sort of stressful event likely experienced by the mother. Stress, starvation, injury, illness. We also used proteomics and ancient DNA analysis to determine that the infant was a female. But of course, none of this can be done without international collaboration, teamwork, and really intensive student involvement. Students are involved with us from the moment of excavation until publication. Many of our students are on each of these publications that you're seeing. This is a 10,000-year-old story that resonates with all of us. This is a story that reaches through time to talk about the importance of maternal health on infant health, the vulnerability of infants, the compassion of a community, and the status of one of the youngest females in an ancient society. These are issues we talk with each other and our families about every day. These are issues we see in the news every day, showing us that the past is present. The infant of Armor Varana is reaching across time and asking us, how do we deal with these issues today in our own societies? And what do we want archaeologists to discover about us 10,000 years from now? Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to say a big congratulations for an epic professional discovery. So, congratulations. Our final Links lecturer is one of our talented doctoral students, Darcy Kitching. Darcy has offered to share her personal story with us as an urban planner, a mom, and more. Please, let's welcome Darcy to the stage.
In the urban planning subfield of children's environments research, we ask questions about how places can support healthy human development. For me, CU Denver has always been that kind of place. I remember spending hours in the Auraria Library while my mom studied for her master's degree in education in the late 1970s when CU Denver was just a curious little kid like me. I'd run through the stacks and climb into a study carrel with my pile of books and pretend I was a college student too. In the 1990s, I came back to finish my bachelor's degree as a rebellious adolescent, breaking free of the small town isolation of my first liberal arts college. The CU Denver was breaking boundaries then too, moving into the old Tivoli Brewery and letting our advocate student newspaper staff tackle all the issues. I came back twice again as a mature adult to earn both a master's degree in urban and regional planning and now a PhD with the intention of making places more accessible for people of all ages and abilities. Like CU Denver, I turn 50 this year. We've grown up together. I'm now writing my dissertation on the different ways transportation professionals, school-age students, and their parents and caregivers think about the challenges of getting to and from public schools. What I have heard repeatedly throughout my research is that people want to connect with nature and with each other. They want to be able to get safely from one place to the next on their own power. They want to have fun doing that and maybe even be able to grab a snack along the way. And they want to know they belong wherever they are. Now, those journeys are not always linear. They're not just A to B, home to school. Instead, they're A to B to C to D and back again. Families' weekday journeys are often very complicated, like this one drawn by a mother in my study. And because those journeys are so complicated with time pressures and stresses of getting everyone where they need to go, those who can usually choose to drive. We've made it really easy for most people in this part of the country to drive everywhere, which expands the area that we can cover during our weekday commutes and the choices that we have, but also negatively impacts the quality of life for those who don't drive and makes it much harder for people to choose healthy, active modes of transportation, such as walking and bicycling. Many of the transportation professionals I interviewed in my research are trying to make it easier for more of us to live kind of like Margaret Torres and her neighbors did in Denver's original Auraria neighborhood on this very land before it became a college campus. It was a multi-generational, mixed-use neighborhood where most of what people needed was within an easy walk or a bike ride and where neighbors knew and cared for each other. Facilitating that return to making shorter, more active, more connected everyday trips is not a linear process. It's complicated, involving different ways of thinking about our transportation, land use, and education systems. My research indicates that young people in particular are eager for that shift. I have always loved coming to this campus, now even more so. It's like a mini walkable city for lifelong learners like me. And just like me, CU Denver is constantly growing and learning and changing. I love this place so much. Who knows? I may never leave.
Thank you, Darcy, and as the Links community, we support you. So we all know that our students are at the soul of this university. And no one knows that better than Dr. Monique Snowden, who leads strategic enrollment and student success. Let's please give a round of applause for Dr. Snowden to the stage.
Thank you, Sarah. So I've been listening this afternoon, and I want to invoke something I heard a little bit earlier. How are you going to fix your problem? Right? How are you going to fix your problem? What is the problem? The problem is that higher education was not designed for students to succeed. It was not designed for students to succeed, right? I want to invoke something else. Pushed out. Not dropped out, not stopped out, but pushed out. How many things do we have in our university environment that actually push our students out? So when we talk about growth, I want you to keep in mind this. Growth is not the goal. It is the outcome of making education work for all. It is the outcome, not the goal. Right? So when we say we want to grow to be 25,000, what we're saying is that we want to open up access, we want to close gaps, that is attainment gaps, that's unmet need gaps, that's all the gaps that keep students from getting where they need to be. We want to activate and advance equity, and we want to redress the history of higher education. That's what we want to do. So we're 50 years old, coming of age, some may say. If you walk around this campus, you look around this campus, you will see symbols of that. Some of them that we feel very proud of. The murals on the walls, the buildings, some not so much so. What we've talked about 9th Street, okay? Maturing is different than aging. That's what we're trying to do here at CU Denver. We're trying to mature, right? And what maturity means is we know that that comes with growth, and we know that growth comes with uncomfortable tensions and pain. If we are not disagreeing, we are not growing. There may be some right now thinking, I disagree with this number. Good. We'll welcome that. Let's work with the tensions. Let's lean into the tensions. Let's understand that the tensions mean that we know that we are trying to be better than what we were because our students are depending on it. They are depending on it. The other thing we need to think about is intentionality. Being intentional, making smart choices, the choices that are going to have the greatest impacts to achieve our goals of making education work for all. Now, how do we get there? Well, during the pandemic, how do we actually get to this side of it? Community. Community. We heard today on this stage about community. We heard about the history of community. We heard about how community gets lost in language and culture and all those things. It is about embracing every part of our history, good or bad, understanding the community in which we reside, the community that our students come from, and the communities they're going to go back to, some of them. Now, we're going to try to keep them here in Denver, right? But some come with a goal in mind that Denver is not their destiny, but Denver is a part of their pathway to that destiny. And CU Denver is a part of that pathway to that destiny. Now, I'm going to ask you all to do something for me, because you know what? Our asset at CU Denver is our diversity. It is our diversity is our asset, right? We need to ride that one. All of our skills, our talents, our knowledge, all the ways in which we are different and not the same, that is what's going to get us there. I want to ask you all to stand up for me for a minute. Please, just stand up. If you are unable to, just sit where you are. You can still participate. What I want to leave you with is the power of the huddle, okay? I played basketball in high school and in college. Sometimes we won. But no matter whether we won or lost, I always think about the power of the huddle, right? When we all put our hands in, can everybody put your hands in? Just put your hands out and in. You can touch someone if you want to, but please ask first. Put your hands in. These hands in represent our students, our faculty, our alum, our supporters, our communities, our donors, everybody that helps contribute to make this great university greater. We're putting our hands in. We're huddling in. And we're going to do what we do in the huddle, right? We're going to bring our passion and our purpose. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. And on 3, everybody's going to say together and throw those hands up. 1, 2, 3. Together. And that's how we do it.
Ow, ow! Can I get another Go Lynx? If there was ever a way to close out the show, that was it. So thank you all for being here and being present with us today. I hope that this is a way to remind us what a powerhouse CU Denver can be, that we are, and how each of us has a role to play in serving our mission and our students. So this has been an exciting day, very full, to share with all of you as we talk about and reflect on CU Denver's past, present, and future.